Okay, good morning, everyone. So, coming to today's session, today's topic. So, we are going to understand a method called Obj Open method. See, in Obj methods, we discuss like Obj browse. Purpose is to fetch multiple records. Obj save is to save the data. So, from UI to table, if want to save any data, we will be using Obj save. So, like that, there is another method called Obj Open method. So Obj Open purpose is to fetch single record from the table. Okay. See what is fetching single record? Let me give one scenario. Suppose if you purchase some, suppose some if you order something in online. Okay. So for every order, some order ID you'll be getting, right? So if you see that order ID will be unique for every user. Okay. So order ID, if you want to track some order, okay, your order if you want to track. So when you enter the order ID, you'll be getting that information. That is nothing but fetching single record. Or if you see if you book some movie ticket or bus ticket or something, some number you'll be getting, some tracking number, PNR number or whatever, ticket number you'll be getting. So that is nothing but a single record. So if you enter that ID, only we can fetch that information, only we can fetch. Your ticket details only we can fetch. We cannot fetch any other user information, we will not be fetching. So like that. So fetching single record is nothing but, so fetching based on that particular input, that is input property will be one, and based on that input value, we are going to fetch and display the records for the remaining properties. Okay, like if you we can have one or more properties in the response. So here request property, 99% cases request property will be one, and here we are going to get the response for the one or many properties, we can get the response. Or other example I'll give you, like if you take some suppose if you are working in some company, so you see every employee details will be there with the organization, right? And if they search based on the employee ID, so they can get that information, what is the name of employee, what is the designation, address, example, etc., etc. All the information they can fetch. So that is nothing but fetching single record. And other important thing is, when fetching single record, the request property, what is the input we are giving for that property, the request property will be unique, will be there. Okay, that is, it should be class key property. See, when you are using a table data and when you are fetching any data from the table, see, in every table without class key we cannot generate a table. So in the earlier example, state table, if you take, state code is the class key. Or if you take the customer table in the last session, customer ID is the class key. So if you want to fetch single record, the main thing is, so based on class key only we can fetch. For example, if you want to fetch based on the name, see, if you take a organization, based on employee name they cannot fetch the information, because employee name can be, there can be two different persons with the same name, right? Okay, so suppose there are suppose if a organization contains some 10,000 employees, so there can be a chance like a duplicate with the same name, there can be two different employees or more employees also can be there. Okay, so they cannot fetch any single record based on any normal property, only class key property, based on class key property only they can fetch the data. So here today we are going to understand this obj open functionality, how to do. So obj open purpose is to fetch one record based on the class key. Okay, see, and here request property and response properties will be there. For example, I'll be using the customer table example. So in the customer table, if any input given for the customer ID, so in the response option, it should fetch all the records for the remaining properties. Okay. When input is given for the customer ID, it should validate that record and fetch and display the records in the UI page. That is the requirement which I'm going to perform. That is obj open. What it will do means, it will only fetch the data to the clipboard page. I told you many times, when you fetch any data either using obj browser or any other obj open methods, so it will only fetch the data to the clipboard page. Again, from the clipboard we need to map it to the UI pages we have to map. Okay, so for mapping from clipboard to UI, we can also use methods also we can use. Today we'll understand one method called page copy method, we'll understand. So page copy we can use to copy the data from clipboard page to the UI page we can copy. Okay, So let's see today's functionality. So this we are going to understand how to configure. See here I want to add this search functionality. Suppose see some new designs I'm going to add here. So we don't use any existing one. Some new UI design we are going to create for this requirement. And here requirement is if customer I want to implement a search functionality. If customer is available, display the results in the same screen in read-only format. That is, if customer is valid means, so display the results in the same screen in read-only format. This is first requirement. After completing this, I'll give you the second task what to create. I'm going to show you. Okay. So first I'm going to work on this requirement. See, for this thing already we are having customer table is there. Okay. So again I'm not going to create again. So we are already having a table called customer table. So we can use that one, but make sure in the table add some records. Maybe in the last session I think one record is given, but today I'll be adding a few more records manually, or you can submit it from the customer search in the yesterday session customer form. If you run and submit the data, it is saved to the table, right? Like that also you can save it to the table, or directly open this customer table. If you go to data type option, you can directly open table and manually enter some records, because the thing is for execution when I execute the data, so for verification purpose if you have any records are there means we can easily debug that issue. Okay, use this customer table to work on this scenario. So here customer ID is the request property, and in the response we can use all the fields we can use. Okay, response fields will be, we can take customer ID, first name, last name, age and city are there, right? You can use all the fields in the response. And manually I'm going to enter some records here. So try to give records, some 2 to 3 records I'm going to enter. Okay, so the thing is, if this input is given, that is if C1 is given, it will fetch all these records. Okay, if C2 is given, it should fetch all the records for the remaining fields. If C3 is given, so this set of records it should fetch. Okay, so that is a requirement. So in the table if records are there means, so that we can easily in the live means already they will submit the data in the database, but here right now, so if records are there, so we can execute and verify the output here. Okay, so I'm giving some records manually. Now here I can see this time for this requirement I'm going to use the page properties I'm going to use, and also we'll understand how to create subsections and how to call it in the main section. I told you earlier we can call one section, in other sections we can call. See here for the request and response pages I'm going to define separately, I'm going to create. See earlier in the some screens and all, in the same section 2 different layouts I use, but in this example I want to create first of all subsections. I want to create 2 subsections I'll be creating, and again those 2 subsections I'll be using in the main section. There is a reason is there and purpose is there, because in the future examples and future exercises, so we are going to independently reuse the input section and response section. That's why I'm going to create separately here. Okay, first thing is, in order to add these designs, so I'm going to create a page property referring to customer table. See in the table already we're having properties, right? So I want to add a page property referring to customer table, so that I'll be using the page properties in the input section and in the response section. So add a page property. It's a single page property. So I'm giving a name as customer page. So name you can give anything. So the type of property is single page, and the reference class will be your customer table class. See, not only from the data classes, from data type also we can reuse properties. So earlier means particularly vehicle class and claims class with data classes we created. Not only from that, if tables are there, from tables also we can reuse the properties. So data hyphen customer table, save this one. See, now from this page property we can reuse in the same properties. I can reuse in both the sections. I can reuse. Okay. So if you are using page properties, means same properties we can reuse in multiple sections also. Actually, now first of all create a input section. See, in input section you'll have only customer ID property. So section format and all same procedure. So I'm going to quickly create that. So open section. Okay, a customer ID section or customer input section, you can give some name. So here I'm giving some name, maybe same name or different name. So I've given the same name. So give a name to the section and click on open. So in this only include the customer ID field, because in the request section only add customer ID field. And set the format and title. And we know how to use page properties in section. So first add control and later you can map the property name. So after setting the layouts and templates, so now add this control. So actually it's a text input control. So from data capture add control name. Now under this we are going to map this property. See, these properties are under customer page. So in the down arrow first you have to choose customer page dot customer ID. Submit this. Okay, save this one. So this is input section. Now we are going to add a response section. In response section, you are going to use all the fields like customer ID, first name, last name, age, and city properties are there in table, right? So all those 5 fields I'm going to use in the response section. So here I'm using save as option, so that use save as option easy way. Use save as option. Update the rule name as a customer results section. Click on open. So already template will be there. Update the title first and add the remaining columns. Update title for this. Click on submit. So now what are the remaining columns we have? See, all are text input only. So add 4 controls I'm adding. So now open, already customer ID is added. So now I'm going to map the remaining fields. Those are customer page dot. Again, we are using the same page property. Map the remaining fields. Customer page dot f name, then customer page dot l name, then customer page dot, and one more field. So save the design. Okay, now actually these two designs I'm going to call in one more section. I'm going to call these two. Actually, these two I'll consider as a subsection. See, subsections also will define in the same way, but why it is called a subsections means because I'll be calling these two in a another section I'll be calling. So add one more section. Now I'm adding one more section. So give a name to this. Okay, so now just to convert the thing, and for this no need to give any format. See, for the main section, if you are adding any subsections, no need to change any format or anything. Directly we can drag and drop. See how to drag and drop sections means. So generally section names you can see under user interface category. Okay, so you can see customer ID section, customer results section. See how you add them in. So just select and drag and drop. That is left side of the section name, select the section name. So drag and drop inside the layout. So like that, the other one is results section. So select the section name and just drag and drop. So like that we can just drag and drop the section names inside the main one. Now here I want to include a button control. So between these two, I want to include a button. So if you go to this action, you'll be having a button control under the action drop down. Say add after the input section. Okay, after the input section, you can add this button and give a label for this. Like you can give like a search or submit. So give a label and save the design. Again we'll come back to this, some other changes we need to do. And actually for the results page, you can actually here results value should be read only values. And one thing is when you add a section in main section, see if you want to do any individual changes, see individual property changes I cannot do in the main section. So for the results section, if I want to configure any individual settings, I cannot configure. For entire panel only I can update. Okay, see if it is a result section, if you manually open means I can do open each property and configure the settings. But if I want to do in the main section, it is not possible. So in the main section, after adding one section inside other section, now we cannot do any changes for individual control. That is, I cannot open customer ID now, or I cannot open first name or last name settings. I cannot do any changes here. Entire panel level only we can do. See here one benefit is that if any here we are going to set all the fields as a read only field. So what you can do means directly in the panel level, open panel settings. So we are setting all the fields as read only fields here. Open panel settings, go to presentation, and here choose option as read only always. So that when after fetching the response and displaying in the UI, it will display as a all the fields will display as a all the records will display as a read only fields. Okay, so save it. So add these two sections, add button control, and set the results page as a read only page. Now actually now Flaction will be creating only for this main design, no need to create separately for the ID section and for the result section. So now add a Flaction to this. Okay, so give a name and click on open. So you need to choose this customer search section. So after saving this, the next step is so we need to main rule is here, activity is the main rule. So before creating activity, I'm creating flow. Okay, then later I'll be creating activity. So first I'm creating a new flow for this design. Go to process category. So activity can also create after flow design also. So give a name, and in this only this UI design we need to call. Nothing is required. Only this flaction, search flaction we need to call in the connector settings. Double click on this assignment connector. And apply the settings in the flow, like turn off the draft mode. Only one design for this. Turn off the draft. Then go to process. Enable this checkbox. Create a new work object. And once save and scroll down. Once save the design and scroll down. So work parties choose PY case management default. Okay. So now we'll create activity. Activity is the main rule, right? So where we need to set all the methods and parameters. So open activity. So coming to the name here, you can give any name. And in this we need to define pages and classes, because from which table we are fetching this data. See, in obj browse means not required, but in obj open, so we need to again first of all in pages and classes we need to define the name of table, from which table we are fetching the data. And for this we need to give some reference page also. Okay, reference page any name we can give. So mention the table name and mention the reference class. And optionally you can add page new and page remove steps. And include the step page details. And in the end of activity, so use page remove. Now, so the main step is here obj open, and this will contain some parameters. So we need to fill those parameters. See, using obj open we can fetch single record based on class key. So in the property names and all, class key property we have to define. So class key property in this requirement is customer ID is the class key property. And actually from which table we are fetching records, again we need to mention here. Okay, so page name is given, and class name, see page name and all, so compulsory we have to define, because in the patient classes we have given the reference page for the table, right? So you need to compulsory use the step page when we are using obj open. Okay, and that particular table class you have to mention here. Actually this lock and commit, if you update any data then we have to fetch and update. If you perform, then we have to enable these two options. Okay, in the tomorrow session you'll understand how to update the data. So when you update any records means then we have to enable lock and enable commit options. Okay, so during updation it will log the data, and after updation it is released on commit. Okay, so only update if you perform. Okay, fetch and update if you perform, then we have to enable these two. Here only we are fetching and displaying in the UI, right? So these two are not required for this case. Okay, a login for also not required. And here we need to mention these class key property. See, customer ID base, that is request property, we have to define in the name option. See, always remember any property set method or obj browse method or obj open method or any method if you are using. So actually in the name option, okay, leave obj browse, particularly property set or obj open if you are using. In the name option we have to define data class properties or table properties. In value we will map UI properties, work class properties we will map. Okay, so here click on dot option. So customer ID is the class key, and in the UI property is nothing but here UI properties are under, see, primary is the reference page. In the last scenario also I told you, see, UI properties are current class properties. If you want to choose, primary is the default page, so choose primary. Then what are the remaining thing is, see, these UI properties are under the customer page property. These are, so select customer page dot, see, customer ID. See here what these, after mapping all these things, what this obj open it is going to do is excuse me. See, when input is given for the customer ID property in the search design, so when input is given here, so it will check it in the table. Okay, in the table it is going to check whether the value given is matching with the table property value or not. It is going to check. Okay, so that is one thing. So when input is given for the customer ID in the UI, so it will check it in the table under the column customer ID. So if matches, then it will fetch all the records and display under the user page called customer details in the clipboard. That is what are the associated records we have for that particular customer ID, like what is the first name, last name, age, city, all the associated records what are we have for the remaining response columns. So all the response it is going to fetch and display in the clipboard page called customer details. So three things it will perform. It will, when input is given, it will check it in the table, and under the table it will check it in the column. If record matches, then it will fetch and display all the relevant records. That is for all the response properties what are the records we have, it is going to fetch in the clipboard page called customer details. Okay, it is a user page, right? So under the user pages in the clipboard, so under this page we can view the response properties or response results we can see. Okay, so after that the next step is, actually the next thing is from the clipboard page how to map the response to the UI page means we can use a method called page copy method. So there is a method called page copy. And what this page copy will do means from the clipboard page to the UI page, that is to the, in the customer section we have a response page, right? This results page is there, right? So using page copy method from clipboard to the results page we can copy the results. Okay, so using this method we can copy the results to the response request, that is clipboard page to the response page we can copy, but fill the parameters accordingly. Here from page and to page we have to give. See, from page is nothing but clipboard is the from page, that user page is the from page. And coming to the to page, see what are the properties used in the customer search section. The format will be like this: primary dot customer page, and give it manually because we don't get in the drop down. So give the two pages. Primary is the reference page, right, or default reference page, and under that the properties are all the response properties are under customer page. Okay, so you have to particularly mention, so primary dot customer page, and save this activity. And this activity you can map it in the, if you go to the search section under button settings, because after giving input then it will perform that action and fetch and display the results in the results page, right? So you can call this activity in the button settings. That is, Here we need to set event and action for the button. Set event and action. See here, we'll go to action tab and click on create an action set. See, coming to the event type is click, because we'll click on button, and here action name is the display refresh. That is also a regular common action which we used in the earlier scenarios, but here additionally now we need to call this activity here, okay, under the display refresh. So under the parameters, so you can call this activity. So give the name of activity and click on submit. Save the design. So this is one task here. So initially, what is the requirement I said is, when input is given for the fields, okay, it should display the results in the same screen in read only format. Okay, so it should fetch and display the results in the same screen in read only format. This is first requirement. Now verify once again, I'll quickly review. So in the table, first try to enter some records. If you don't have any records means, so try to give any records manually, or give it through customer design. You can also give, okay, by executing the save functionality in the last session which I did. So using that save functionality, you can assign some records to data type customer table. You can insert, then add a page property referring to customer table, because we can reuse the properties in both the input section and output section. That's why I'm creating a page property. And here in the sections also, first of all, add two individual sections, one for input and one for output. So in the input section only include customer ID, and in the response section include all the fields like customer ID, first name, last name, city and age. Then in the third section we are going to drop these two sections, we are going to drag and drop, and in between these two add a button control. Then after the button is included, open button settings and give a label to the button. Then next thing is, we'll set the results page as a read only page, all the results properties what are we have taken. So for entire panel we can set, if you use the subsection, so all the panel, what are the properties we have, all the properties at a time we can set it as a read only field. And the next step is, so after saving this design, so we can create a flow action. Then either activity or either flow you can create, that's your choice. So I created flow action in my application, so you can create activity if you want first. So then define pace and classes in activity, so give the table name and reference page, and use page new and page remove, or page remove optional. So Obj Open, if you expand that, you have to fill the parameters like table name and column name. So customer ID is a class key, so we have to define the customer ID property, and then use page copy method. See, page copy, we have to fill the parameters. What is the from page and to page? So that will copy the data from clipboard page to the user interface page. It will copy. And after this saving activity, call this activity in the button settings by setting event and action. Event type will be click and action name will be display refresh. Okay, so fill the parameters and save the section design. Okay, and now you can, okay, if you already created the flow means, now you can compile the flow. So by giving this flow action in the flow design, so run this transaction. So once check this section, sometimes we may forgot to save the section after mapping these. See, sometimes if you don't save the design after these button settings are configured, you don't get the output properly. So save the design after this mapping, because it is existing one, right? So any modifications, again we have to save them. Okay, now run the transaction. See here on load off page, you'll be getting input property button, and results page also you'll be getting by default. That we can correct in the second requirement. See here on load of page only I'm getting button input property and results page also I'm getting initially only. Okay, we'll correct that. First I'll try this output. So give a valid input and it should be case sensitive. So give valid input and click on search. You can see the results will be loaded from the table and display here in the UI page. Okay. So if I change the value, say I think C4 is not there, I think. So you'll not get any records for the remaining fields. Actually, now the next requirement is on execution only input property and button only it should be loading here. The results page should display only if input is valid. Like we can apply some visibility condition. If input is valid means then only display the results page. If input is invalid means display some error message. Okay. So continuation to that, now we are going to work on this second task for this. Okay, here output we are getting, so but more things we are going to customize for this requirement. So here on load of page only display the input property and button only. So if input is valid then only display the results page, and if input is invalid then display error message, something, some label or message we are going to configure. Okay, see for this purpose we need one checkbox property. See, in order to apply this decision making, so we need a checkbox property. So you can create that using widget option. Open widget from the work layer. It's a single value property I'm creating. So open widget. The checkbox means the type will be boolean in widget. So you can give any name. I'm giving as like customer exists. So choose the type as boolean. Now after adding this field, open your customer section. See, this checkbox property we don't drag and drop anywhere, but we'll be using internally applying the visibility conditions. In these designs, in order to apply the visibility condition, I'm going to use that checkbox property. See, after this button, add a label. So if you go to data display, you'll have a control called label control. And open settings and define the message. Okay, I'm giving some messages. Customer ID is invalid. Okay, or you can give something like customer doesn't exist. Okay, or customer ID doesn't exist. Okay, so give some message and submit this. Okay, now I want to apply some visibility conditions such that if input is valid means display results page. Okay, and if input invalid means display this error message. So here we can apply this visibility condition to apply these functionality. So in order to hide the results page initially, so if valid then only display the results. If invalid means display the label here. So open this results panel. First of all, open this results panel. So visibility conditions earlier also we implemented similarly in this requirement. So again I'm using condition expression. See here the condition is customer page dot, okay, not customer page. See customer exists equal to, see if true means it should display this results page. Okay, that is if customer ID is valid means, so give it in lowercase. So if customer ID is valid means display this page. Okay, so for that give this condition customer exists equal to true. So submit this. Then for the label we'll add this false condition in visibility. So customer exists equal to, Okay, so give the value as false, but one more parameter we have to configure is, see here by default you'll get this option called run visibility condition on client, and this will be enabled. See, actually, if this is enabled means label will load on a load of page. Okay, see, label should display if only if input is invalid, then only it should display this label. But on load of page by default, if this checkbox is enabled means, so this label will be loading automatically along with the design. Okay, so what we need to do means after the condition, disable the checkbox run visibility condition on client. We need to disable. So disable that and submit this. And now what are the visibility conditions defined in this section? Accordingly, we need to update the steps in activity rule. So what are the steps we created earlier in activity? So some additional steps we have to configure in the, because these steps earlier when visibility conditions are not there, these two steps are sufficient. Obj Open and page copy are sufficient. But if any visibility conditions are given, so we need to update the steps in the activity. So what are the steps we need to update means? So those customer exists boolean checkbox properties there, right? Those values we have to assign in the activity rule. Okay, let's see the steps. See, after page new, add a new step. So I'm using property set. So use property set. Actually here no need to define the step page, because only work class property I'm using and assigning the result to the work class property, that is customer exist. Okay, here customer exist equal to, see initially I'm taking as false. Okay, see here in the business logic when you're using these values false or true values, so first letter you can give uppercase, you can give no issue. But in condition means particularly you have to mention in lowercase only, how to mention. But in activity in the values and all, if you are using true or false values, no issue, first value can be uppercase. And actually mostly when we apply these obj open and validations, if you are applying, so we'll apply some condition we are going to apply. See, there are some pre and post conditions are there, right? But obj open whenever we use, mostly we'll apply some jump condition, that is post condition we are going to apply. That is in obj open, after verifying the record in the table, suppose if record is valid, then all okay. After this, one second, so add a new step after obj open. I'll come back to that condition. Add a new step after obj open, and this time, see, because page copy, before page copy you have to use true condition, we have to give before page copy, give the true condition. Because the reason is, if true means then only it should copy the data. Okay, if false means block the step, means no need to execute the remaining steps. So as per that requirement, so first of all before obj open always we'll set the false condition, and after obj open execution, because if record is matching means we'll set the true condition, then accordingly it will execute the next steps. Okay, but whether this record is matching or not, here we are going to again validate the condition here by applying some jump condition. Okay, because if record is valid, then only execute the remaining 4 and 5 steps, it should execute. If record is not matching means, then no need to execute the step number 4 and step number 5. That is the purpose here. So why I'm adding this jump condition means, if record is valid, then only execute the next steps after obj open. If record is not matching means, no need to execute the remaining steps. So let's see how to add the jump conditions. So click on this jump option. So add these two things, property set false and property set true, before and after. And after this add the jump condition. See, Pega contains some built-in when conditions will be there. When are nothing but if conditions. Okay, so Pega contains some built-in if conditions. So mostly when you are applying jump condition, and before obj open we have taken false, right? So there is one condition called step status fail. So there is one built-in when condition called step status fail. Mostly this will be using. See, step status fail means, so because if record is not matching, then here exit activity. So in the, if record is not matching means what, it should not execute the remaining steps after obj open. And true means, if false means continue when. Okay, because see, fail I have taken, fail means what, if record not matching means then exit activity, and false means what, if record matching means continue executing the remaining steps in this activity rule. Okay, so apply the condition like this. See, these are again some additional conditions for the if true and false, we'll be having these additional conditions. Okay, whether to continue executing your activity or jump to some step in activity, or skip one step in activity, like that some conditions will be having. Okay, so here now, according to the condition statement, so here if true means exit activity, if false means continue when. Okay, so that is, if record is not matching means it will stop execution with the obj open step. If record is not matching means it will continue, sorry, if record is matching means it will continue executing the step number 4 and 5. Okay, so apply this validation jump condition. Now save this activity. So like this we can apply these see, if visibility conditions are not there means only the above steps are sufficient, but if visibility conditions are configured, then additionally we have to configure these property set false, property set true, and apply the jump condition. Now already this activity is given in the button settings, right? So you can validate now. Once again execute your flow, you can once again execute your flow. See, this time on load of page you'll be getting only input property and search you'll be getting. If I give a valid input, okay, so then only, if input valid means then only it is displaying this results page. Okay, on load of page it is not displaying this. If valid means then only it is going to display the results page. Suppose if I give any invalid input, then it should show that error message. Okay, so it will show the label which is there given in the UI design. So what are the message typed in the UI design, that error will display here. Okay, again if valid input is given, so then it will again read the value in the table, and if it is matching means then it will fetch the data to the clipboard page, and from there it will map it to the, it will copy to the results page in the UI. Okay, so like that. So whenever we change the input, again it will every time call the activity and perform that action. Okay, so like that we can apply any like maybe in the real time your properties names may be different, but procedure will be common. Maybe your design template can be slightly different, but activity combination steps, okay, process, everything will be same. Okay, so like that, if you want to fetch any single record, so based on class key, so these functionalities we can implement. Okay, without using visibility conditions and using visibility conditions, both we have seen. So you can try this example, and like that there is other requirement is there. Okay, if you want to try, you can give a try. See, now in the same page results are displayed, right? So I want you to give a try. So if input is given and after submission, try to display the results in a separate page. Okay, here it means in this requirement means I tried in the same page. So give a try. So try to display the output in a separate page. See, in that case what you have to do means, so you need to create a separate flaction for input section and separate flaction for response section. Okay, so if you want to display the results in a separate design means, then you have to create a separate flaction for input section and separate flaction for output section. And in activity also, what is the method we have to use means, you will be using a method called, instead of page copy, you will be using a method called here, we have to use property set method and map all the clipboard properties and UI properties, all you have to map. Okay, so that is one change. If you want to display the output in a different page means, then try the process. You have to add a separate flaction and separate flaction for input and output. And in the activity, instead of page copy, we have to map a property set you have to use. Okay, in the property set all the properties list you have to mention. Okay, So all the properties means like customer ID, first name, last name, city and age, all you have to map in the left hand side and in the right hand side. Okay, that change will be there. So give a try. Okay, and activity also very hard to call. In the input flag action, in the post processing you have to call. Okay, in the input flag action, in the customer input flag action, in the post processing you have to call this activity. Okay, so give a try. Okay, in the coming classes I'll show other way, like how to display results in a pop-up window. I'll show you, but if you want to try, give this one example, you can give a try. Okay, so try to display the output in a another different page. How to display, give one example, try one example. Okay, because all the things we know, but from your side try this assignment. Okay, so like that, any functionality if you get in order to fetch single record based on class key, so this obj open will be using. And there is one more method called obj open by handle. Okay, that is also similar functionality, and sometimes instead of obj open we will also use that method called obj open by handle. So more about that obj open by handle I'll discuss in the next session. Meanwhile, quickly I'll review. So after the first task, what we did is, so we created a checkbox property, and but checkbox property don't no need to map it directly inside a section. So you have to use that for adding visibility conditions. And what I did is, I created this label, that is add a label in the search section after the button control, and apply the visibility condition. True means it should display the results page, and false condition will apply for the error label. So we applied the true condition for the results panel. Just like a conditional expression you have to use. And other one is, for the label we applied the false condition. And one additional setting we have to do is that run visibility condition on client for the label we have to disable. And coming to the activity steps, after the UI design is completed, we need to update the steps in activity. So where before obj open add false condition, that is give the boolean value as false, and after obj open give the boolean value as true, and apply the jump condition. So if the input is matching with a stable value, means it will execute the remaining methods after obj open. Okay, because it should copy the results to UI page and display there, right? Suppose if input is not valid, means then no need to copy the results to the UI page. Okay, so that is the purpose of this business logic. Okay, so apply these steps and just try this scenario. Okay, any questions, anyone? Any questions?